Ireland. I'd like to extend a very grateful and warm welcome to the Venerable Gyalton Rinpoche. As we say in Ireland, Céad Míle Fáilte, which means 100,000 welcomes. And 100,000 welcomes also, Céad Míle Fáilte, to everybody who's joining on Zoom and on YouTube. And thank you very much for your patience. It's a great opportunity to practice. So, of course, we were hoping that Rinpoche would grace us with his physical presence, but because of visa processing issues, that wasn't to be this year. But we're lucky that we can still receive these incredibly precious teachings. Very good for busy, lazy people like me. Very short, just 8 verses. So by way of an introduction of introducing Rinpoche, so I found this morning thinking that it was beneficial to remind myself that how fortunate I am to be able to receive this pure transmission from a lineage holder who's the incarnation of a very holy being, a great Bodhisattva, who takes birth in human form to help, to guide us, to bless us, to teach us, and to transmit the Dharma so that we can practice Bodhichitta and become who we truly are eventually. So I also like to remind myself how fortunate I am and not to take this opportunity lightly or for granted. So I'd like to ask our Umzi Majala to lead us in the prayers. So Paul, would you mind popping the prayers on the screen, please?
Sanje chodam soke chonam Jongcha bado dani Dake chojete sonamge Drola benche sanje drupasho Sanje chodam soke chonam Jongcha bado dani Dake jinso jepe sonam Drola benche sanje drupasho. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until enlightenment. By the merit created through generosity and so on, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all saints. Semchen Tamche Dewada, Dewe Juna Medwaja, Chiknala, Duna Juna Waja, Duna Medwaja, Waja, Nyering Jada Nidan Torega Semchen Tamche Dewada, Dewe Juna Medwaja, Chiknala, Duna Juna Waja, Duna Medwaja, Nyering Jada Nidan Torega May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never be separated from the genuine happiness which is free of suffering. May they abide in great equanimity, free of near and far, attachment and aversion. Wonderful, precious Lama, residing on the lotus and moon above my head, I pray that you take me into your care with your vast kindness and give me the siddhis of body, speech, and mind. Sashi Puchu Doshi Metotram, Riravin Chene de Champada, Sanjay Zindu Mete Purwaye, Kroko Nanda Zingna Shupashu. Sprinkling the earth with perfume and strewing it with flowers, adorning it with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. Imagining this as a Buddha realm, I offer so all sentient beings may enjoy it.
So, is my audio clear enough, or do I have to wear the earpiece? Can you hear? It's okay. You don't need to wear the earpiece, right?
Oh, yeah, it's very clear here.
Okay.
So everything is
Yeah,
okay.
okay. So, first of all, I'm told that these teachings are going online, not only to Ireland, but anybody can watch. So I would like to wish everybody, I'm not sure if everyone is afternoon, so morning, afternoon, evening to everybody. So I was requested by Palpum Ireland to give a teaching, and a few days back. And then, I decided that this particular teaching, the 8 verses of the mind training by Kadampa Master Geshe Thampa would be, a great teaching, especially in these times that we are living in right now and going through. So all of us experiencing, a difficult time, unstable time. So I think with that, then I thought these teachings were most appropriate for us, practical for us. So that is why I decided that this would be a good teaching. And also, these teachings seem quite brief, quite short, but it has all the essence of all the teachings in it. Then they were the main in teaching of the great Kadamba masters, all put together can be summarized in these 8 verses. So in that sense, then it is very profound, and yet very practical for us to memorize, to practice, or to recite in our day-to-day life and put into practice. So that way, it is quite manageable. So in these contexts, so I think it is a good topic to go through, or a good teaching to go through for us, people like us. So now, first of all, and then we all beings, whether we are humans, whether we are animals, whether we are any kind of beings, we have one common goal or wish, and that is to be happy. That is to be free. Free means happy, free from suffering. We wish to be free from suffering. And of course, the right way to put it is we wish to be happy, and all the necessary conditions to happiness, and we wish to be free from suffering and all the cause of suffering. So that is our goal. But even though that is our goal, we somehow are not able to really find this perfect happiness that we are looking for all the time. We may find them in bits and pieces, but somehow, these happiness tend to last not very long. And sometimes these so-called happiness becomes the source to one's problems also. So it's kind of quite complicating in that way. So we wish for something and we pursue that with so much effort, yet it becomes something else. So that way, all beings, we wish for the happiness. We wish to be free from suffering, but depending on individual, some are able to achieve happiness to a more greater extent, some less extent. In the same way, suffering also, some able to reduce suffering more than the others, depending on individual individual level. So now these sufferings or these happiness, how does it arise, or how is it that each individual experience differently? So these are because all whether it's happiness or suffering, all have all are come about with cause and condition. So nothing happens without a cause and condition. Like we say, out of the blue, fall from the sky. Nothing is like that. So it doesn't happen that way. If it is like that, then there's an example. That flower should bloom in the air, in the space, but it's not possible. No matter how much we wish for, it is not possible. We need the right condition, cause and condition, create the right cause and condition. So in that sense, like for example, the flower, if you want a beautiful flower, we need the right temperature to plant that particular flower. We need the right soil, the right the what do you call it, the manure, then right way of taking care, sunlight, so water, etc. So each flower have their own different character and needs. So depending to that, we need to fulfill. And if we are able to do that, then we can, have this beautiful flower. So because of these, so many conditions, cause and conditions, which create the result. So in the same way, then even our, these happiness that we yearn for has to have cause and conditions. We need to create the right cause and condition. And the sufferings that we wish to eradicate, we need to create the right cause and condition to eradicate them. So that is very important. So this is also called the law of karma, right? Cause and condition. So that is very important. So now, so this karma, how does it? How do we create that? Mainly, we create through three. We say the three doors, which is through our physical action, through our verbal, speech action, and through our mental, the state of a mind. So mental action. So through these three, we create, cause and conditions for suffering or happiness. So in order to create happiness, and then we need to, generate positive cause and condition. If we create a negative cause and condition, then that results in suffering. So that way. Now, physical and verbal action is how do you say, a sub-action of the mental action mainly. So it is said the mind is like the king, and the speech and the physical is like the subject. So where the mind directs the the action, the physical or the verbal action follows. So therefore, the mind is the most important aspect of it. If even sometimes we see, that physically we do some positive action, but behind it, if we have a negative motivation, and then that kind of a action results in a negative accumulation of it accumulates, and it develops into a suffering. In the same way, if you see that the action somehow looks a little bit harsh, or a little bit not very gentle, or pleasing, but if that action came about through a genuine a kind heart, a genuine positive motivation, then the result is a positive a positive result, or it yields in good merit or positive result of happiness. So for example, I give you like say for us normally, we think of our parents as someone who has kind of dedicated a lot towards our well-being. And now I always thought that way, because we grew up with that kind of a outlook, so that way. But when I started traveling, I realized that that is not the case for many. So here, it can be any. You can think of anything else. But for me, I give you an example, like my parent. So they did whatever they could to bring me up with the right, trying to educate me to be a good person with good principle, etc. So they try to cultivate that in me, and in doing that, maybe when you are young and carried away, sometimes then you do certain things that is not very how do you say, not very it's not very friendly with the surrounding, and in that, then they try to kind of reroute you, and sometimes if lucky, then you understand, and you agree to that idea. But sometimes with your youth, you cannot understand that, and you refuse that, and then they have to teach you in a more strict way, by maybe shouting at you, or like in the West, I see a lot of them, they give them time out, right, to a corner in the room. So here we don't get that. It's more serious than that. But in the West, I see my relatives, their children, when they up to mischief, then they send them to a corner, and make them stand there, and that's like a really big punishment for them. If it was for us, we would run away from that corner. So like that. So anyway, so it might seem like a little bit harsh on a child, but then that came with a genuine intention to educate the child, so that it can cultivate positive principles in the child, so that those positive principles can carry the child in its later stages to grow as a great person of value for oneself and for others. So that way, so because mentally, it was a positive motivation, though, externally the words might be a little harsh, action might look a little harsh, but it is positive, so that way. Whereas then there are others, who do certain, like say, these days there's lots of, like, everything has become online. So you see a lot of these, you get a lot of these calls from people, saying that you have won so much and so much, money, and or you have won these prize and this and that, and then you give your some information and like that. So sounds very nice, and then they really make you feel happy and great, and you have won something and this and that. But actually, their intention is to loot you. So then they loot you, and there you are. You lost everything. The little that you had, they have taken. It's really sad. Just a few days back, I saw this documentary. It's a true documentary. That these what are they called? They're called hackers, right? So they were, and they target the old and old people who don't know much about all this modern how these things, computer and all these things work. And then there are cancer patients who are towards the last stage, and then for their treatment, so these hackers, it seems they can hack the computer, the camera, they can hack everything, so they do this hacking, and then they call them and then ask so many, questions, and make things so they are experts, they know how to, get to you, so they ask all kind of questions, all kind of these things, and then make it so nice yet complicating that, such people want that, but, cannot understand how to go about. Then finally they succumb to them and tell them to help them out. And then they give them some information here, there, and then, the little money that they have for their, treatment, or the earnings that they have throughout their life, they just empty it out, no feeling, no nothing, so that is, though temporarily sounds very nice, trying to help you and this and that, but behind it, the motivation is negative, so that way the result is negative, so definitely such things have negative karma. So, and then these people were caught by other hackers also, the more expert hackers, caught these hackers, and then they were put, they were brought to justice, so like that, so like this, it's very sad, when you look at it, how can one even think of that, for, kind of looting such people, who their hard-earned money towards the end of their life, trying to, get some treatment, already going through so much difficulty, but no sense of, compassion to such, so if one, if one is not careful, but see, all this thing is for, as I said, purpose to get some kind of happiness. Now it's whether whether you know how to get that happiness in the right way or not, so that these hackers also, they want money. Why? Because they want to have a better life. They want to, get things that they don't have, etc., etc. So that is for their individual happiness. They are doing that, but they don't see that the other side also is same like them, and then they don't understand that, so this is where, this every human life is not precious, so here today, a handful of us who are trying to listen to some teaching, such as the mind training, etc. We understand, that the positive, good action, loving kindness, compassion develops in happiness, and others too are like us, so we have these values, so that is why we are trying to learn and progress in this path, so, and be of some, some value, or some, someone meaningful to this humanity, so that is very precious actually. It is said that it is like the lightning in the middle of the night, in the middle of the night, when there's a lightning for a split second, total darkness, it lights up entirely for a split second and goes back to darkness. So are such, these kind of great, merit, we say, to be able to see this, righteous values is very difficult. As we say, how many of us are here? Just a handful. But how many are there who don't even know this? And are going on doing such things like I told you, like these hackers. They are all doing it for their happiness, like how we are, trying to learn to achieve happiness. They are also doing the same, but the right way of doing it, the right, the reality. So they don't understand that, but we know that. So that way, then it's very precious. We mustn't waste that. We must rejoice in this, and then try to uphold this and make it better and better, so that it can continue, and we can grow and become a great, how do you say, a great value to this humanity. Starting from oneself, and then to one's around you, and then to and then in the society, and then that way, grow that way. And so those are very important. Now, so in this, then, as I said now, so mentally, the mind is the king. The state of mind is the king. So that is why, and we all wish to be happy. We all wish to be free from suffering. But how to be, free from suffering? How to really achieve this happiness? That's where, a lot of confusion is there. Why? Because of our ignorance. Because of ignorance, we think, external material wealth, and etc. can give us the ultimate happiness. That is what we think, and we work for that, and we are engrossed in that. But actually, and then we lack in looking inward, trying to develop this quality within us. And this quality within us actually is there, ever present. Like nowadays, scientists have done a lot of research, and they have found scientifically through experiments that, we humans, of course, they did on humans, so human, but generally we say all beings, our nature, or our innate nature, is positive, is kind, is loving. That is our nature. And they did these kind of experiments on like newborn, small children who were yet to be, how do you say, brainwashed by, self-interest. What is good, what is bad. This is right, that is wrong. These kind of, things. And they are totally free from these, perceptions. And in that kind of a period, the children were put, through tests where, an environment was created which was very negative, and that kind of environment, and another environment which is very positive, very full of love, full of kindness, that kind of a environment. And then they saw, towards which the child is more attracted. And then, they found all the children, naturally attracted, or goes towards this positive, and the peace, kindness, love, it goes towards that. And none of them expressed, attachment towards the negative environment. So that way, so of course many other examples, experiments, but this was one that they did, and found. So that our innate quality is positive. It's something that's loving, that's kindness. It is there. But gradually, as we grow up, then we become, we are taught, that the material well-being is important. Then the self, the identity is very important. Need to always protect the self-identity. Then self before others. So these kind of things we call them the worldly dharma. The worldly principles. So they sow that in us, and then gradually we become who we are. So like that. So, but our innate, no matter how much that is done, our innate quality, our nature is positive. That cannot be changed. So therefore, when we talk about mind training, it is very much, it makes a lot of sense. It is not like something that you are brainwashing, something that you are not, that you are trying to be. It's not something that you are creating something new, that you are not. If that is the thing, it is very difficult. Something which is not there, how can you create? When it's not there, it's very difficult. Even if you create, that is then impermanent. It is not possible. But our innate quality is positive, kind, loving kindness. So therefore, these qualities can be realized. Can be through training. It can be developed or realized. And so when I say developed, it doesn't mean it may, in the very basic level, it may sound like kind of increase it, but actually, if you go into more deeper, it is always there, but it is like like the sun, which is behind the cloud. So temporarily, when the sun is behind the cloud, you cannot see, so you cannot feel the warmth, you cannot see the light, but as the cloud passes away, then the sun is always there. The heat of the sun is always there, the light of the sun is always there. It is inseparable from the sun. So like that. So it wasn't made more, it wasn't made less. It is always what it is. It is just whether the temporarily obscured by the cloud. So when the cloud is moves away, then it is what it is. So same way we beings also. We are. Our nature is loving kindness. Limitless. So we have limitless potential. So this, when we gradually through such teachings, practices, then we are. It is like it is like a bulb, a light source bulb which is covered with dust. So temporarily the light is weak because of the dust. So gradually, when we wipe away the dust, then the light shines through with the full glow. So same way are these obscurations, temporary obscurations, which obscure us from seeing our quality, this limitless potential. Gradually through these kind of trainings, teachings, then we are polishing it. We are removing the dust. So that way we overcome, this limitations, and then realize our full potential. And so therefore, mind training is a very, mind training teaching is, especially for us in these times when we are going through a lot of mental, ups and downs. It gives us a lot of sense of stability, and helps us to achieve that stability. It helps us to have this very open view, open outlook, which makes us stable, which makes us, peaceful. So therefore, this training, I think, is a very meaningful practice for this time. So now, then, as I said, so because of these things, then great masters of the past, practiced and took these practice as the main practice, day-to-day practice, such as exchanging oneself with others, then doing the Tonglen practice, giving and taking, or sending and taking practices. So these things they did day-to-day, their main practice with the practices. So it was part and parcel of the practice. So because these are so beneficial in one's mental growth, it becomes like a great foundation for all other practices to grow, to develop. So therefore, these are very precious practices. So now, it is like, mind training, the word training, as I said, can mean a lot. One training is, to train again and again, so that you're trained to do something. And that is also, kind of a good way of looking at it, because through countless lifetimes, we have habituated ourselves through our ignorance to many things which bring about a lot of confusion. So we wish for something, but we do certain things which makes us difficult to get that. And we wish for certain things which we think can give us ultimate happiness, but when we really get that, changes. So it's not really the ultimate happiness, and we are unaware of that reality, and then we are confused with that. So because of habitual pattern, of many lifetimes. So these obscurations, through mental afflictions, so habituated to mental afflictions, thinking that the self is important, the self exists in reality, and the self needs to be cherished and, cherished above others, and so etc. So like that, so then for that, then you develop, attachment to that, and then others besides that, you have, either jealousy or ego, pride, etc., etc. So these are called mental afflictions, and so one develops these mental afflictions through ignorance, and we become so habituated to that we don't see what is the right, what is the wrong, what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to avoid. So that way. So now training is, then we train ourselves in the right path, how to do the right thing, how we train to gradually lessen these negative habits, so like that. So that way, then training is a good way of understanding the meaning of mind training. Then a more deeper understanding of the mind training is, as I told you, that from our nature, our nature is pure, our nature is limitless potential, our nature is loving kindness, compassionate, so this is our nature. But again, because of the ignorance, so temporarily we are obscured from seeing this because of these habitual patterns, negative habitual patterns. We are unable to see this. So this limitless potential is mistaken for I. This most limited thing. I is just one in this entire universe, and you are in plenty. So that way we can just imagine how little, how limited this I is. Yet for us, this I is the biggest thing. We can only see this I. So that is how ignorant we are. That is how we are. So therefore, so that is like the is like a temporary obscuration, because, as I said, our nature is positive, loving kindness. From beginningless time. It is like, say, for example, because it is perfect, pure from beginningless time, we can become Buddha. We can become pure. If we never had that quality in us, then how can we become that? If we are dirty, if we are ignorant from the beginning, there's no way we can become, there's no way we can realize wisdom. There's no way we can become Buddha. Because if we are negative, how can we become positive? So that is not our nature. For example, I give you a clean cup. We all drink, say, lovely tea in a very nice porcelain cup. So if we have a very clean, nice porcelain cup, then we have a good tea in that. We enjoy the tea. We can enjoy it. But if the cup is dirty with dust, or dirt, then we cannot enjoy the lovely tea. But we can wash away the dust or the dirt with water and soap, and then get back the clean cup where we can enjoy the tea. So why? Because the cup itself was never dirty. It is a clean cup. But temporarily stained by the dirt, the dust. So because the cup itself is not dirt, it can be cleaned back, because that is the nature of the cup. But if the cup itself was dirt from the beginning, then there's no possibility of us getting a clean cup. So like that. So because we can become Buddha, our nature is Buddha. If our nature is not Buddha, we cannot become Buddha. So that is the base. So here, mind training is that. So we, in a way, in that sense, then training means, in Tibetan we say Lo Jong. Jong, in a way, means purification. So we purify these obscurations, which obscure us from seeing or realizing the truth of who we really are. Our limitless potential, our this Buddha nature, our this limitless loving kindness, compassionate nature. So these obscurations, the temporary obscurations, which make us so limited, through this purification of this training or in this practice, then it purifies these temporary obscurations, and then our true nature manifests. And when that manifests fully, then we are enlightened Buddha. So in doing that, then through these trainings, we become closer and closer to who we are. And so that way, more positive. We become positive internally and externally. So that way. So that is a more, a more deeper level of understanding of this word, the mind training or the Lojong. So when we say that, then we are not dependent on anyone. We are complete master of ourselves, or let's say we have the full ability to be free from this limitation. We have complete assurance to that. And so it gives us this, it gives us this power or this assurity that if we work to, to develop our innate quality, then we can achieve that. We can achieve the everlasting happiness. Why? Because we are that. So we are not negative. We are that. So because it is in us, because it is with us, because we are that. Temporarily not able to realize that. But if we work on that, we can have that. Otherwise, if we don't have that in us, then if we have to search somewhere outside, then it is very difficult. We have to depend on so many things which is not in our hand. Then we are, then it is very difficult. No matter how much we work, maybe if somebody doesn't want to give you that, you cannot have that. So no assurance. So then that is very demoralizing. So but in this we don't have to be demoralized, because everything is in us. We already have it. So it's only the matter of whether we realize that or not. Whether we see the truth. And that is possible because the precious Buddha manifested the Dharma, taught the Dharma. The Dharma is the path through which we can realize this. So the path is there. Now it's totally up to us whether we want to realize it or not. So if we want to realize it, then we, we follow the path. We practice, or we work on that. And then if we don't work on that, then again it is our choice. So it is totally our choice. We are not dependent on anyone externally. So that is why it is. We are here. Then we are very assured. It is very motivating. I think this is very motivating. Because you can do anything. You can achieve anything. We wish for happiness, we can achieve happiness, because everything is in our hand. We are not dependent on anybody else. So we want happiness, we create the cause and condition for that happiness. We don't have to wait for someone else creating that for us, because it is up to us. it is totally in our hands. So therefore, it's very assuring. So that way. Okay. So now, before we go through this text, and then a short biography of the author. So it is good to know. Very short. So he's, as I said, known as the Geshe Langri Thangpa, because his real name was Dorji Sanjay, Dorji Sanjay, and he was, he lived in the time period of, I don't know how do you say, 1054. I guess you say that, right? 1054 is 1054. I guess you read that way. And from 1054 to 1123, so he lived for about 69 years. So when you calculate, I'm not sure, something like around maybe 900 and something years back, right? I think somewhere around there. So he lived during that time. So then his actual name was Dorji Sanjay, but because he became a great master, and then he built a monastery, or established a monastery in this place called Langri, in Tibet. So he came to be known as the Langri Thangpa, Geshe Langri Thangpa. And he was a great, well-known Kadamba master, master who followed the Kadamba teachings and practice. Then the Kadamba tradition came from the great master Atisha Dipankara, where the lineage of the profound view and the vast practice became merged into one single lineage called the Kadamba tradition. And Atisha, his mind training teaching, he brought from Indonesia, from Johor Selingpa, in Indonesia. And so the place we say settling, I'm not sure in what they call in Indonesia. So that place is very much there just now. It's in Indonesia. So from there, the mind training teaching, was brought, and then so Atisha, one of his principal disciple was called Dom Tempa, one of the Kadamba master, Dom Tempa, and his principal disciple was Potova. There was one master great master called Potova. So these are all great Kadamba masters. And then so Potova had two main disciples called Sharawa and Langri Thangpa, and so these two are the main disciples of Potova. And Geshe Langri Thangpa put down these the 8 verses of mind training. And later on, the great master, again a Kadamba master, who put down the 7-point mind training, which is very popular, and I'm sure all of you have heard of that. So this practice called the 7-point mind training was put down by Geshe Chekawa, and Chekawa, it is said that he put down those words when he was small. He heard this teaching of the 8 verse of mind training by Geshe Langri Thangpa, and when he heard that, it resonated with him so much that it became his main practice. And through those practice and realization, then he put down the 7-point mind training. And so that's how the 7-point mind training also came about. So, and then there's lots of Geshe Langri Thangpa also he has a nickname which is called the Donama. Donama means a sad face, or a dull face, or black face. So because it is said that he always reflected on the sufferings of sentient beings, and the ignorance. As I said, beings, our nature is perfect, pure, loving kindness, compassionate, Buddha by nature. But even though we have that quality, nobody really working towards that. Everybody is so busy in this, samsaric, worldly, the external, these limited benefits, which don't even last much because it is so temporary, and and even that turns into a source of suffering again sometimes. So but we all working so hard trying to achieve that and preserve that, which is so difficult to preserve and cannot preserve. So we are all working. So reflecting on all those and seeing all that, then he was so upset, and he felt upset, and he felt great compassion for all beings, seeing how ignorant everybody is, and that made him feel so upset. So one of the students told him, why do you look so upset and always crying and like this? It's quite embarrassing, because you are a great master, and you have so many students, and when students come receive teaching and all, when you do that, it makes us feel also not very nice. We feel quite embarrassed that our great master is always so upset and crying and like that. So the master Pandit Thangpa said, how can I smile when I see the sufferings of beings, and that suffering also not needed, but because of ignorance, created, so self-afflicted suffering, so seeing that, how can I even think of smiling? It just doesn't come. So it is said that he said such things, and also it is said that he only smiled 3 times in his life. So I don't know whether these are true or but it is there. That he smiled 3 times. Once was when he was doing his practice. Then he saw on his altar there was a mandala offering, and in the mandala offering there was a huge like a turquoise stone, which was made like a precious stone, so offering to the Buddha's 3 jewels. So then one rat came, and tried to, take the turquoise stone, and then cannot take. So it went away and brought 2 more rats with it. And then one rat lay down, and the other rat pushed the stone on its stomach. It held, and then one pulled, one pushed, and then they tried to take that, and they took that. And then seeing that, he laughed, burst out into laugh, because what can a stone be of use to them? Though it is turquoise is nothing. It is just illusion, our mental fabrication. But actually it's of no use. So for the rat, it cannot eat, it cannot do anything. But it works so hard trying to push that and take that. Unnecessary work, unnecessary effort. Loss, no efficiency. So seeing that, he laughed. He said, samsara is like that. So that was one time he laughed. Then the second time, they say, is since he was a great master, he had omniscience. He could see future. Then he was passing, and then he saw one person, like in Tibet, you have to stitch your own shoe. Underneath the sole is a leather. You stitch the leather sole. So one man was stitching a new leather sole, and then he could see that this person had come to his end of his life. And then the next day he was going to die. But this person was trying to sew new a shoe sole for himself, imagining that he's going to live for a long time, and like that. So he's seeing that we are all like that. We in a way we understand impermanence, but in a way it doesn't. Like we think we will live forever. We think things around us is there forever, and when we lose them, we are upset, and all that. So that is like lack of conviction in impermanence. Though impermanence is the relative reality of everything, relatively. So that is how we are. So seeing that again, he burst out laughing at that moment. But I guess after that again he felt bad. And I'm sure he would go back to his state of great compassion and sadness. So like that. And then another time was again one person was digging the earth, and because there was a small stone there, in his property, I think, and he was trying to dig that stone out. But then, he could see that that stone was so, deep rooted that underneath it was a big, a mountain of rock. And then this person didn't know he was trying to dig out the stone, which would never have been possible in his lifetime. So that then again, same way, so he was very amused, and he laughed. So they say those 3 times were the only times he laughed. Otherwise he was very, serious. So anyways, so that is how great masters used to practice that. Like masters like Kadamba masters. So he was the author of this particular text or the practice. So here I sincerely pray that may all of us, having this opportunity to make a certain kind of connection to these teachings of such great master and such great teaching, we can, genuinely, we can genuinely make a difference in our own, life, and not only that, but in the lives of those around us, and in a greater extent to the entire humanity. So, as we say, a drop of, water makes an ocean, right? So, every individual is important, to make a change. So that way, I sincerely hope through today's, reflecting on these teachings, we can sow that in us. And so, now coming back to the mind training teaching. So now we start with the text. So here in this text, I'm used to, there's one text that I have, so I will read this, but the Tibetan words are exactly the same as yours, but the English translation may be a little bit different, but I'm sure the meaning is the same, just words are written a little differently. So anyway, it doesn't matter. So we see, you can, you see whatever you have, and I will just read this also. So that way, maybe, whichever word makes more, how do you say, connects with you. So that would be, good, I think, to hear 2 different versions. So that's why I will read this, and you can read your text. So, yeah. So now in this text, so it is basically the practice of Bodhichitta. As I said, Bodhichitta is the that is the our primordial nature is loving kindness, compassionate. It is limitless loving kindness, limitless compassion. So not just limited loving kindness, compassion, but limitless loving kindness, compassion. So that's Bodhichitta. So this Bodhichitta here, in order to develop that or realize that, or realize that, then it is put forth in 2 main practice. So the 7 verses plus 2 lines to the 8th verse. So till there, it is the practice of the relative Bodhichitta. And the last 2 lines of the 8th verse is the ultimate Bodhichitta practice. So that way, and then we have relative and ultimate Bodhichitta. Now, when we say relative Bodhichitta, then relative means, it is dualistic. So dualistic means such practice is, as the name relative, dualistic, means here I am here. And there's a practice to be done. And there's you to whom I do certain practice. So, like that. So, for example, act of generosity, there's me here, then doing the act of, generosity act, and then there's someone there, to whom I do that act. So that's, relative, the subject, object, and the action. So therefore, that kind of practice, to develop bodhicitta is the relative bodhicitta. And ultimate bodhicitta is free from all that. It is it is the practice of the emptiness. So free from these three spheres of action, as I said, the one who's doing the action itself, and then to the subject who you are doing the action. So it is empty. So that kind of understanding and meditating on such and practicing on such is the ultimate bodhicitta. So that it means, when it's emptiness, it is limitless. Emptiness doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't mean nothingness. It means limitless potential. Everything possible. So that way, then that is our nature. That is who we really are. So in order to get there, then relative bodhicitta is the mean. So through relative bodhicitta, our goal is to achieve the ultimate bodhicitta. So that is why here the first 7.5 verses are the practice of the relative bodhicitta. So here now the first one, I will read in Tibetan also, and then read in English. So it says, the first one says, Da ne semjen thamche la yijin norbu le thapi thamchu tencho dubi sambai tatu jeban zimbra sho. So here this the verse emphasizes the importance of cultivating righteous attitude towards the how do you say, towards others, and cherishing their well-being. So it talks about that, the practices, to develop that. So here it says, that thinking of all sentient beings as being more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, with the intention of achieving the supreme goal, may I at all times hold them dear to my heart. So here now, the subject is to the sentient beings, and here, so you are reflecting on the sentient beings as comparing them to a wish-fulfilling gem. A wish-fulfilling gem, or there's stories in the past where you have these wish-fulfilling gem to whom, if you make a wish, your wishes will be fulfilled like that. So I don't know how true they are, but these are the stories. But anyways, but there is a saying, right, that those who who live well, and all that kind of so it makes you like materially, it helps you to progress, something like that. So basically now these are it is a, as I said, material kind of well-being. So material well-being, as I said, is, first of all, it is impermanent. It doesn't have an everlasting character. So you might have, even if you get that wish fulfilled, it is going to last only till certain period. And when that exhausts, then what happens? Is your experience is already higher than what it used to be. So when that exhausts and you go back to the your square one, then the suffering is even more than before. Because you already experienced that little extra luxury. So when that is taken away, now your expectation is higher. So when you don't have that, size also, so is better. So your problem also increases that way. Your your greed, your need, or so everything increases, multiplies that way. So that way, external such wish fulfilling gem or vase or whatever it really can't give you genuine happiness, or well-being. Here, then it says, but such beings, sentient beings, are even more precious than that. Why? Because it says, "Tunjo dubi sambai," beings benefit you in a way that you can achieve the ultimate realization or the enlightenment. So the beings can give you that. Therefore, it is, very precious. Now, how can it give you that? It is because sentient beings are there, one can practice bodhicitta. One can practice loving kindness, compassion. If beings are not there, we don't practice loving kindness, compassion to our, let's say we have a, beautiful pearl necklace, right? What is it called? The pearl company, Mikimoto, right? Supposed to be a very good pearl. So you have that in your box. You have this. It gives you more of an attachment, pride, ego, rather than developing your loving kindness, compassion. You don't have loving kindness, compassion to your pearl, or your jewelry. You don't have loving kindness, compassion to your, car, to your house. It doesn't develop your loving kindness, compassion. It only develops more your attachment, more your afflictive emotions. But sentient beings, are the source to which we can develop our loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta. And this bodhicitta is the source through which we can attain enlightenment. And this enlightenment is the everlasting happiness. It's unchanging happiness. When I say enlightenment, it is, I'm saying, you realize the ultimate truth. You realize who you are. You realize what everything is. The ultimate realization. That is enlightenment. A lot of us sometimes, when we say enlightenment, we think of, the image of Buddha, and we think something that's separated from you. Then you think enlightenment is a little bit too far-fetched for you, and it's difficult to connect with you. You don't feel that connection with enlightenment. And then it's like, nothing. It's I would rather like to choose temporary material well-being because it gives me kind of a short-term happiness. Also, it gives me happiness. Enlightenment is something that really doesn't connect with you. So when you don't understand clearly, that is the problem. It can become like that. But when we understand that enlightenment is but your nature, that is who you are. The perfect you is enlightened, but because of our ignorance, obscuration, we are unable to recognize that or realize that. So it is so close that we are unable to, experience or recognize that. It is said like your eye cannot see your eye, because it is so close to it that it cannot see. You can see the whole world, but not your own eye. So that. So it's because you are that you are not able to see that. So that way, then if you look at it, then you can connect to it. So that way, then here, like great master Shantideva also said, that if you not aspire for the exchange of your happiness with the sufferings of others, the enlightenment is not possible. And not only that, even relative happiness in the samsara is not possible. So that is now very true, and we can experience that. Because even in our day-to-day life, if we are not able to really, able to, put, how do you say, others, more in front of you, or have some kind of a respect, care for others, and always thinking about yourself, always self-centered like that, and then even forget about enlightenment. Even in this relative world, temporary happiness is also very difficult. A person, the more ego they have, the more attachment they have, the more, these kind of self-centered attitude a person has, that person is, pretty much, very sad person, very isolated person, very lonely person, because everything is self-centered, and then out there, all others are, as I said, only you are I. So when you're so centered toward I, then you become separated from all the yous. then it's very lonely. It's not not a very nice thing. Even in this, day to day, you cannot experience peace, happiness that way. So forget about enlightenment. Even in this life, it says, samsara also you cannot have these temporary happiness. These short-lasting happiness also you cannot. So that is, what the great Shantideva said. Okay. So, like now, with such practices, and then it is because of others that we can practice for example, the 6 paramita practices. 6 paramita practices means like practice of generosity, practice of patience, so these things, practice of morality, etc. So all these are possible because of others. So you need someone to practice your patience on. If there's nobody to practice your patience, how do you practice? There are many stories, where practitioners, they practice patience themselves, meditating like this, and they think, that they have achieved some kind of, some kind of advancement in the practice, because they feel, now they are more stable, more peaceful, not much thing. Then, when they go out, when they really come in contact with someone who really irritates them, suddenly that peace is lost. They get affected by that. So like that. So unless there's somebody who irritates you, or who's there, hitting your weaknesses, then your the weaknesses are not, it doesn't manifest. So it hides, and it is very clever. It has been kind of deluding us for the past countless lifetimes. So it is so expert that it is so expert in hiding that it's very difficult for us to see it. But the beings out there, the sentient beings, they are very kind to us, that they hit these hidden faults in us so well that it is so easy to erupt. And through that, then we can see them and work on them. So that way, then by that, then we can gradually eradicate these afflictive emotions. And by doing that, then gradually, we become closer and closer to our primordial nature, and then realize, become enlightened. So that is why, so beings are very important. Okay. Okay, so again, we move to another, because again, time, so not too much spend on one. So now the next is, it says, so now that is why then, because through beings we can achieve enlightenment. Why? How we can achieve enlightenment is by, developing our bodhicitta. And bodhicitta can be practiced and developed through sentient beings, with the help of sentient beings. Therefore, sentient beings are so precious to us, more precious than the wish-fulfilling gem or vase, which only gives us, kind of temporary, benefit. So that is the first stance. Now the second, it says, count to Sudan Ropitse, Dani Kunde Menkashing, Jen la Sampatabai, Cho to Cheban Zimbersho. So wherever I associate with whomsoever, may I see myself lower than all the others, and from the depth of my heart, dearly hold others as superior. So in the first stanza, or the first phrase, paraphrase, it's talking about in general. Now in general we spoke, how we should see all sentient beings, how precious they are in this. Now when you work on it, then you have to work on something. You have to be more specific and work. So here in the second, then it shows, how to work more specifically. So it says that whenever one associates with whomsoever, then one must always have this the attitude of here, may I see myself lower than all others. sometimes if one is not careful, can misunderstand this. Now, it doesn't mean one sees oneself as a inferior in the sense of like not good, not a bad person, that kind of a thing. Not capable, not like that. Those are called again laziness. So it is kind of laziness where one puts down oneself. So here it doesn't mean that, because we already know that our nature is limitless. Like all beings, is Buddha by nature. We are. So we are perfect in nature. So therefore, there's no space for that kind of negativity. So it's not talking about that. So here, what it means is, when it says, "May I see myself lower than all the others," it means we are working on these afflictive emotions, which create this ego pride in us, which create the self which never was there, I, which never is there, but because we misjudge, misread this limitless potential of us into this limited I, so how pathetic this I is, because it never was there. We shouldn't be so limited. We shouldn't be so how to say, so pathetic. But then, because we are so perfect, we are so beautiful, we are so limitless, but because of our ignorance, such we see this, mistake this for such a small, limited, pathetic thing. And so here, when it says, may I see myself lower than the others, it's attacking that delusion. So it is trying to say that mistake, that is so, that mistake, then which thinks it is so great, this illusion of the self, I as great, this I as most important, I as everything, and seeing these things, so that it says, we must attack that. And how do we attack that? By seeing that as lower than all others, all others who, here it says, Dani kun nemen tashing, so seeing that, as I told you, through that, then the others are the ones who can help you to recognize that these misconceptions by attacking those those faults in you. So therefore, one looks up to these qualities in others. And so here again, it says, in the in one of the text of the 37 practices of a bodhisattva, there's a text. So here, there it says, if one does not, if one does not subdue one's own enemy, which is the enemy of one's ego pride, then ego pride and anger, etc. This the afflictive emotions. Then no matter how much we try to subdue external enemies, then it will only multiply. Then because if we hurt one person, behind that person there's it's near and dear ones, then we become we become problem to all of them. So the one multiplies, and those multiply. So that way it only creates more confusion, more problem. So it says, rather than trying to subdue externally that way, and then by developing loving kindness, compassion, then one can, through loving kindness, compassion to others, then subduing one's own those afflictive emotions, then that is the most profound way of overcoming all problems. So that is one of the great masters have said that. So now, so like, so now the next, the third is Cholam Kundu. So now the next one says Chulam Kundu Rangjula Tajin Yumong Chemata Dajin Marung Shepina Zenta Don Dogorsho. In all my activities, by examining my mental continuum, and as soon as afflictive emotions arise, which are pernicious means pernicious to self and others, may I forcefully confront and avert them. So yeah, so now here this is it says in the third phrase, then shows that in the process of practicing the the practice such as cherishing of others, then there will be obstacles which take the form of like frustration, hatred, etc., and sense of competitiveness, so towards everyone, etc. So when these difficulties or afflictive emotions arise, then they harm both you and others. So applying the right antidote to deterring these afflictive emotions, then so that is the practice of this the phrase. So it says Cholam Kundu Ramjula. So all the time we must examine ourselves. As I said, examining our three doors: our physical action, our verbal speech, and most important, our mental action or mental state. So that is very important. So Cholam Kundu Ramjula, all the time. So Cholam means here we say when we are sleeping, when we are awake, when we are so all the time eating, so we must always be mindful. And as soon as see whether we have any of the afflictive emotions arise, and whether we go in their like influence, and if we recognize them arise, straight away at that moment itself try to cut them with antidotes. For example, if you have like anger, hatred that arise, then if you recognize that kind of afflictive emotions arising towards someone, straight away with antidotes such as loving kindness, compassion, you tackle that. Then if you have some strong attachment arise, then straight away through antidotes such as now I'm forgetting English words. Generosity. No, Dechung Chokshe we say in Tibetan. Dechung Chokshe is like, I know this word in English. No, it's not coming in my contentment. So things like contentment, practice of contentment. And then we overcome such things. Then with so like that, so and then for like ignorance, when ignorance, then we reflect, like ego. When we have afflictive emotions like ego, then we contemplate on, there's no space for ego because so much for us to learn, and so much, reflect on the precious Dharma teachings of our great masters. Then, those are antidotes also, we say. So like that. So we straight away apply the antidotes for such practices in these practice. So if you do that, then because it is a beginning stage, when it's just developing, then we can, quite easily tackle them. Once they become, once you become associated to them too much, then it becomes very difficult. Like it becomes a habituated pattern, right? So, for example, a person like a smoker, right? So, as I said again, it is possible to eradicate them because this, beginningness, in the beginning, our nature is not that. Like for example, a smoker, a smoker person, his he is not a smoker from birth. He didn't smoke from birth when he was, when he came out to the world. But gradually that became a habit. He got introduced to cigarette smoking, and then he took once, still not addicted, twice, not addicted, then gradually becoming addicted. So the first time when he tried the cigarette, if he could, stop that, then it was very easy for him to stop. But then when it becomes the second time, third time, more difficult. And then once he starts smoking like a packet or two a day, very difficult to, stop. But doesn't mean it is not, possible to stop, because that is not his nature. So very much possible to stop, but more difficult. But if he stops from the beginning, it's very much easier. So therefore, here it says always, being mindful of these afflictive emotions arising, which harm yourself, rather than others. So that is why it's like hitting a hammer on your own head. So you recognize that straight away and don't hurt yourself, and don't get into that habit. So therefore, it says, and how can you do that? Is by being mindful. And by being mindful, you can recognize that. If you're not mindful, you cannot recognize that. So by being mindful. So so why you need to eradicate those afflictive emotions is because they create, problem, suffering for you as well as others. So therefore, one needs to, straight away apply antidote. Tsentap means, forcefully stop them. Forcefully. So like there are these stories, of great Kadamba master. He was practicing in his room, and he had, he was a good practitioner. And then he had a sponsor, who would come visit him, I think on certain day, and then make some offering, and then, like that. So then, so this practitioner, he had fallen off to sleep, and then I guess, he had stayed up late studying, or I don't know what, then practicing, and the next day, he had forgotten that it was the day when this sponsor was coming to visit him, and he had fallen off to sleep till late. Then suddenly, he woke up and then saw, that it was very late, and his sponsor was almost, reaching. And then he quickly got up and, cleaned all the altar and, made the offerings and everything, and then went back to his seat and, acted like, he was meditating, in his daily meditation, and that, and then thought when the sponsor comes, if if the sponsor sees that he's meditating like that, then he will develop great, respect and that. Then suddenly, as he was practicing, he realized that, so then when he realized that that wasn't what actually was happening, it was just a false picture that he painted for the, the sponsor. Then he was so upset with himself, that he went and, dirtied everything around, and put down all the offerings, and then went back to sleep, to make sure that the sponsor sees, what he was doing, or what he had been doing, so he went back to sleep like that. So those are like practices, how these great masters did. They're always mindful, seeing, what their action is, how the mental state is. So that, so one must practice that way. Now, the next, the fourth paraphrase says, Ranging MP Semjen Digdu Tabu Nun Tongse, Rinchenter Dante Bajin, and Neberkavi Chinzin Show. So when I see beings with unwholesome nature, afflicted with grave sins and suffering, like finding precious treasures, may I dearly cherish them as if they are hard to find. So here, now in this stanza, it says that particularly here, so it says, here this Bodhichitta practice towards beings of, like lesser fortunate than oneself. It's a Rangin Nembi Semjen. Those beings who are, who have, nature of, quite aggressive nature. There are some who, try to do all, negative things, enjoy in harming others, enjoy in, saying mean things, enjoy in that, so these kind of actions, so these kind of beings, then, so through such their action, actually they themselves creating, as I said, negative karma, everything cause and condition, as I said. So for a positive, result, you need to create a positive cause condition. For a suffering, then comes around with negative cause condition. So therefore, but these beings, they don't realize that through ignorance. Then they are creating negative cause conditions by being such, harming others, using harsh words, action, a harmful action like that. So through that, actually, they are not able to harm you, but rather they are harming themselves. How they cannot harm you is because you are a separate entity. It is, if you get affected mentally, then you are affected. But if you don't get affected by it, they cannot affect you. But because with their action, it creates cause condition for their karma. It creates cause condition for their, experience of happiness or suffering. Their action does not create, happiness or suffering for you. You create your own happiness or suffering with your own cause and condition. So therefore, through their such action, they are creating suffering for themselves. So that is one kind of a being. Yeah. And then through that, then they have immense suffering. Because creating, through ignorance, creating such negative cause conditions. So seeing such beings, then it gives you the opportunity to practice bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion. Practice such as this, give and take practice, bodhicitta practice. Now bodhicitta practice such as, putting oneself in the shoes of others, then practicing your bodhicitta, and then practicing loving kindness, compassion. So these, since today not enough time, we can do tomorrow. The practices and such. So loving kindness, compassion practice we will do tomorrow, meditation, and then the Tonglen practice also we will do tomorrow. So like that. So these practices, you have the opportunity to do those practice because of beings like this, who create so much negative, atmosphere, and then which in turn is harming themselves. So seeing that, it gives you the opportunity to develop loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and that bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, that quality is so precious for you, because that is the only a quality through which one can develop this limitless, or one can realize this limitless potential, because one's limitless potential is that, so that in full is that. So therefore, one sees these beings as Rinchenter, as the precious treasure. They are like a precious treasure, which is so difficult to find. So, because normally it is said, those who are nice to you, those who are friendly with you, they don't give you much opportunity to develop, because they are always saying nice things to you. They are always friendly with you. Then you are happy, go lucky. So it's like you're who you are. You remain there. You're, as I said, these tricky emotions. They hide beneath you, and then your friends don't help you to pinpoint them. So it only becomes more. They make you even more. They feed to your ego. They feed to your attachment. They feed to your all this. So greed. So that way it becomes actually seeing, it becomes even more, you become more susceptible to these lesser quality. But now these kind of beings who create problems, who have such difficulties in their life, gives you the opportunity to have loving kindness, compassion practice for them. So therefore they are the genuine or true treasure. So therefore we must uphold that and cherish that. So that the fourth practice. Now the fifth practice, Dala Jinji Tadoki, Shekur Lasso Merikbi, Chonka Ranki, Lembatan, Jaka Jen Lambu Show. So when others out of jealousy wrongly disparage and slander me, etc., may I take upon myself the defeat and respectfully offer victory to them. So here again, this verse says that it explains a particular prospective way, where generally when we do good to someone, then we expect them to return in similar, way or behavior. So we are always with expectation. But when they, so it is very difficult, to be, how to say, to be in, to have the authority to make somebody, repay you what you do, right? Because they have their mind, they have their way, you are separate from them. So when you do something for others and expect the same back, it is very difficult, doing things with that kind of strings attached to it, then actually it really diminishes your such virtuous action. When you give something expecting something back, and when that doesn't happen, then it gives you suffering. Your action of such a good thing turns into suffering. But if you are able to give something or do something without any expectation, then that remains a happiness, source of happiness all the time for you, because you don't have any expectations. So all our actions should be like that. One way, not two ways, one way. If we can do that, then whatever we do can bring us happiness, because no attachment to it. When there's strong attachment to anything, then that brings the suffering. So therefore, like we have this, since all of you have connection with the Buddha Dharma, then I'm sure we offer the water in the morning, the altar, the water offering. Why do we do a water offering? Because water is so precious that without water we cannot live. We need water for life. Yet we don't have attachment to water. When we offer water in the morning, we are happy to do it without any second thought. We don't think, oh, today, I feel stingy to offer water. I don't want to offer water. Or, you don't have any, let me offer a little bit of water. That's too much to, pour. You don't have any thought like that. No matter what the size of the bowl, you're ready to, fill it with water. So like that, because no attachment to it. And then it is so precious that without water, you can't live. But it's so precious, yet when it doesn't have that attachment, it becomes such, it is precious. And when you make that kind of offering, that is a complete offering, nothing attached to it. And in the evening, you can, most happily throw away the water and have no attachment to it. You won't think twice about, should I throw the water or not? Whether should I offer back the same water tomorrow, or, you don't think like that, because no attachment to it. And when there's no attachment to it, then the merit is, great, we say, because, it doesn't diminish your action, because it is 100% action. It is 100% given. So no more strings attached to it. But like when we offer, say, let's say even like fruit, when we offer a simple thing like a fruit on the altar, we think, what is the best time to get it down? Because, before it rots, we have to eat it, right? So we don't want to throw it, So even something like a fruit also, you're thinking, so much attachment, you don't want to waste it. You need to eat it, so you have to calculate what time should you take it out. So you forgot about offering to the Buddha in between. While you're offering to the Buddha, you also thought of offering to yourself. So that's not like that. So then if in between, if a monkey comes and takes it away, then you have great anger towards the monkey. The monkey doesn't even realize that it was offered, or it is yours. But then you will have such anger towards a monkey because your attachment to to that. So that so with attachment, then so many all other affective emotions arise. Is attached to that. But when you don't have any attachment to it, then nothing arises. Everything is 100% one way. So like that. So every action should be one way. It shouldn't have such strong attachments to it. Because if you have these kind of inclinations, the clinging on, then what happens? Your action becomes diminished. It becomes limited. So therefore, here it's a count that. So especially here it says, those who are close to you. Now, those who are not very close to you cannot affect you much. But those who are close to you, who are dear to you, when you do something for them, then your attachment is strong. They are so dear to you that you try to do, to them something, and then when they don't repay, the suffering is even more. If someone who you don't really know doesn't do anything to you, you're fine with it. You don't even have attachment. You don't think, you think, why, there's no connection, I don't expect anything. And you're not hurt, no suffering, not much suffering. But supposing your near and dear one doesn't, kind of, is not so, friendly with you, or doesn't even talk to you, you are upset. You are so, like upset with that, because that is near and dear to you, and you have so much attachment to you. So the more attachment to a person, you have so much suffering. It brings you suffering. And so that, so these things, so afflictive emotions arise in suffering. It develops into suffering. So less than the less suffering. So here, so those who one is very close to and has done a lot also, when they don't return, in the same way, then one should see them as one's teacher, one's trainer, and who is trying to target your afflictive emotions, trying to train you to, to purify these, negative qualities of you, which are the cause of your suffering, which, so that way, then they are very precious to you, it says. So I think today is already time, right? So maybe we keep here, and then tomorrow we continue. And then then the other thing is maybe, tomorrow, those of you who have any questions, you can, write in the question to maybe Pabung Island, and then you can send it to me tomorrow, and then we can see, and then I see. And because some questions may be the same, some questions never. So same questions, no need to repeat. And then we can do some question answer tomorrow. Then we will do a little bit of practice tomorrow, and then we will, conclude the remaining practices of us tomorrow. Okay, so we end here. So now we do the dedication.
Sunan diere tamchese dai, Sonye nye pedronam che, Trigona che palam chupai, Tepe sule chowa chowa Sanje kusu nye pejnava, Chonye menjorden pejnava, Genun mi chedun pejnava, Shita Moa Kina Deva Sasolo Vende Nankata Pasho Dona Tacheto Urwadana Chitra With this mirth, may all obtain omniscience and defeat the harmful enemy wrongdoing. From the ocean of existence, stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, may all beings be free. Through the blessing of the Buddha's attainment of the three bodies, through the blessing of the unchanging truth of the Dharmata, through the blessing of the unwavering aspiration of the Sangha, may this dedication prayer thus be accomplished. When I am happy, may my mirth flow to others. May its joy and benefit fill the sky. When I am unhappy, may the sorrows of all beings be mine. May the ocean of suffering run dry. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat to bridge a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah, 2:30, everybody. Tomorrow, not 1:30, 2:30 to 4. So thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you, Steve Rinpoche. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.